Hey y'all, hey y'all. I'm tired. Hey y'all. It don't matter. I'm here. I'll give it a couple of seconds. Today I wanted to do a Q&A. If y'all have any questions, go ahead and put it in the chat. Go ahead and put it in the chat if you have any questions. I'm here for questions, y'all. I am here for questions. But in the meantime, so I missed the last 2 weeks. First of all, let me tell y'all this. I missed the last 2 weeks because I was in Egypt 2 weeks ago. And it's hard to believe that it was 2 weeks ago that I was in Egypt. And then last week I was just tired. And then even this week, I still feel like I am recovering and recouping all the millions of emails coming through, all of the millions of requests that are coming through. A lot of it is good. A lot of it is good stuff that's happening, y'all. If y'all seen any of my posts recently, it was Nurse Deck featured me on the cover. I did not expect that. So if you're on my mailing list, y'all probably seen a story. I didn't expect to be put on a cover of Nurse Deck. I did the interview back in March, and when I woke up yesterday, and it wasn't even supposed to come out until September, but when I woke up yesterday, um, I was the cover. I didn't know. So that was dope. And just some other things in the background. My book is coming out soon. I have some people reading it. I'm really excited for them to get it, and I can't wait to get their feedback. So I need to follow up with them to make sure that they got the book. It is called Stigmatized. It is coming out this fall. Stay tuned because in the next couple of weeks, I will be sharing the launch date. Pay attention to the details, y'all, because it's all in the details. Seriously. Um, okay. My email going off. But and my email's always going off. There's always somebody in my email. It's crazy, but it's all a good thing. It's all a blessing. As overwhelmed as I feel right now, I feel so much gratitude to be able to talk about the stuff that I talk about and to get acknowledged the way that I get acknowledged, knowing that there is a huge stigma on cannabis medicine, the topic of cannabis, and and that's really what I wanted to talk about tonight. Like that's kind of been on my mind about just general stigma. So when I talk to people on a regular day, a lot of times people will talk about the stigma, and I don't even know if they realize how much the stigma affects them. It's almost as if they are they're talking to me about the stigma as if it's something strange or weird or bizarre that's happening. But what I know is, and the reason why I'm so passionate about identifying the stigma and overcoming the stigma is because of the work that I've done in the cannabis industry. Because you don't get no choice but to confront the stigma for what it is, right? And because there is a clear overt stigma against cannabis. So if you hear the word cannabis, you think, oh, that's bad, right? And with anything, there are pros and there are cons. There are good things that can happen and there are some bad things that can happen. But we tend to want to focus on one aspect of that coin, right? And we do that with everything. Whenever you talk about anything, you want to talk about whether or not it's good or if it's bad or your opinion on it or whatever. You want to make judgment on that person or that concept or that role or that identity, right? And as far as I'm concerned, nothing is completely good. It just depends on which side of the coin you looking at it at, right? Or the effect it has on you and your personal life as to whether or not you pass judgment on that thing or not. And I'm just kind of tired of it. I just generally am tired of it because once I identified it in the concept of cannabis, once I identified the resistance that I was receiving in relation to the conversation that I was having about cannabis, I started to see it in everything. Oh, you a nurse, so you a hero. Oh, you a nurse, so you make money. Oh, you a nurse, so you crazy. Let's keep going. Oh, you a black woman, so you definitely crazy. Oh, you a black woman, so you definitely know how to twerk. So you a black woman, so you got daddy issues, and the list goes on. Oh, so I don't know, you a mom, so you should be a protector. Oh, you a mom, so you have to now be a martyr for the cause. You have to withstand and bear all the burdens of other people in your life because you are a mom, right? Or I don't know. Oh, you have locks, so you must be a Rasta, right? Oh, you have a earring, an industrial. You got to be crazy, right? Just come up with all the things that people think to say about you in relation to what they see about you, as opposed to inquiring about what it actually is. So I'm a nurse, but does that necessarily mean that I'm crazy? Yeah, I've seen some stuff. Yeah, I might be a victim to some trauma. I might be a person who has seen death and dying and have a perspective that's not as commonly known amongst the average person. Yes, I'm a black woman whose history is hundreds of years old and sourced in slavery, which causes a subconscious trauma that projects itself in X amount of ways, right? And some of us have done the work to overcome the stereotype, to overcome the the idea of what you perceive that role to be. Because in a lot of ways, I was always trying to operate in what the role of a nurse was, but that didn't always fit me. I was always trying to operate in this kind of perfected version of what a mother is, or what a black woman is, or whatever. And what I realized is that there is no clean cut way to approach these concepts or these roles or the way that I approach myself. And once I did that, once I realized that, and I start being a little bit more honest with myself, things started to fall into place in a different way. And part of it was my education and my awareness of cannabis medicine, and the endocannabinoid system, really. Like, how do you optimize the endocannabinoid system in the way that I live my life? And for those of you who don't know what the endocannabinoid system is, it is the ultimate regulator of homeostasis. And there are very specific ways to optimize it. A lot of them you're familiar with. And the one that you probably have the most resistance against if you're not in this space is cannabis. Um, and once I started to participate in some of the things that I learned about that, learned about myself, learned about owning a business, what that evolution looked like for me, I started to notice patterns in the people that I deal with, the nurses that I deal with, the experiences that a lot of the nurses that I attract are that deal with. And when it comes to what I am doing, because I think there is some confusion about what I do, I want to make sure that it's clear that what I do has nothing to do with my opinion. It has everything to do with validating other people's lived experiences and creating a space for the patients who are choosing cannabis to live the lives that they are intended to live. Cannabis as a medicine has been around for hundreds and hundreds of years, since the beginning of time. And a lot of the traditions that come along with cannabis has been passed down. And I don't know, let me put it this way. Nobody should be shamed about the way that they live their life. And as healthcare professionals, I think it is a duty and a responsibility to be an advocate for that person's lifestyle and how can we best optimize the lifestyle that they currently live to better enhance wellness. We are wellness advocates. I think that advocacy is not spoken about as commonly as it probably should be. And we don't walk in that right. And I feel like the reason why we resist that advocacy, that role of advocate for our patients in a lot of situations, despite the fact that we probably know better or understand better, is because we don't want to go against the status quo. We don't want to be a part of the stigma. So, in order for us to not resist what is commonly known, we don't advocate. Like, we just don't exert that right. And especially when you operate in a hospital setting. So, when I talk about what that stigma is, how that stigma presents itself, I think that we need to spend a little bit more time with our language, our repeated thoughts, the ones that kind of come through and tell us what we're not supposed to do and why we can't do what we're going to do. Because a lot of times those thoughts are the thoughts that are perpetuating the stigma, right? I was talking to somebody today and I love her to death. I don't know, I don't want to say her name out loud, but like just a dope individual. And one of the things that I look for in people is authenticity, right? I'm an introvert. I'm a self-proclaimed introvert. That's what I do. That's how I operate. Like doing stuff like this is not natural for me. It's taken a lot of practice, a lot of work for me to be able to communicate clearly, authentically, and consistently because it does. It takes a lot of effort for me. And so when I met this person, she's very outgoing and somehow we connected. But the thing that I look for when I'm dealing with people is authenticity because it's so important for me to not hit resistance in a way where the person that you're showing me is not the same person that you are, because that's even more draining than dealing with people in general. So I say all that to say this person, we're having a conversation and she's like, you know, I used to be a stripper, and when people deal with me, they deal with me in a way where they automatically assume I'm a hoe. And I'm listening to this and I'm like, but why? Like, you perform a task for pay. So the activity that you do in that's adjacent to the task, right? Like, so hoeing is adjacent to what people assume you're supposed to do because you're stripping. How is that fair that you're going to judge that person because that's what they chose to do to make money? Nobody's judging you because of the way you chose to get money. So a lot of the people that are in my audience are nurses. Nobody's judging you because you facilitate and you perpetuate the opioid crisis. Like, that's part of your job, right? You handing out opioids all day like it's candy because that's part of your job. Not knowing, not clear on whether or not that person has an opioid addiction, or maybe that person may have some other addiction that now you facilitated that process for that person, like because you haven't had the conversations that need to be had, but nobody's judging you about that, right? So I'm not saying that for you to feel like, you're doing something wrong. I'm just saying that there are a lot of activities and a lot of choices as human beings that we make based on the circumstances and an environment that we live in, based on the options and the opportunities that we feel like are present before us, that we choose so we can make sure that we can make a living for ourselves. And it is not up to you and it's not up to me to be able to decide whether or not it's good or bad. And again, that's the flip side. It depends on what side of the coin you on. But we do that. So here I am. And the reason why this is so important to me, why this conversation is so important to me, I am a nurse. You're already gonna make assumptions about me being a nurse. I am a mom. I am a Black woman. I am an author. Hi, Sophia. How are you? I am an advocate. I am a student of improv. I am, just so many things, and I'm multifaceted. And I'm tired right now, to be honest with you. But I'm still showing up. I'm still here. And you're still learning new things about me just by me being present. And sometimes when we're dealing with our patients and when we're dealing with people, I think we need to give more people an opportunity to be able to communicate the why behind they do, but the why behind what they do, right? And specific to cannabis community, the reason why consumers choose cannabis in a lot of cases is to relieve some sort of ailment or discomfort, or the number one reason really is pain that drives cannabis consumption. And to be able to inquisitively engage our patients, and it doesn't matter when you engage them, and to be able to help better drive actionable outcomes and increase wellness amongst them. I mentioned the number one reason for cannabis consumption is pain, but the issue is, one, you can't cross, like, a lot of the medications, pharmaceutical medications that we prescribe for patients. It does have an interaction with cannabis. We need to start having more conversations about that. We also need to start having more conversations about accessing clean medicine. Are you getting it from a reputable source? Has it been cross contaminated by pesticides, bleach, other chemicals? Has it been tainted with uh, opioids and just all these other issues that kind of come along with cannabis consumption? We need to start educating our patient populations who are uninformed about this. There are a lot of cannabis consumers who are very well informed, but could also use additional support in understanding uh, physiology, anatomy and physiology, pathophysiology, et cetera, et cetera. So, for me, I just think that instead of us spending so much time talking about the stigma, we need to spend a little bit more time talking about the people who are being impacted by cannabis and other holistic methods of achieving wellness. So, Sophia, how are you? I am fine. Tell if you have any questions, I am happy to answer them. I'm going to disconnect in the next couple of minutes, but I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. I was just going through and discussing just some perspectives and thoughts on just the stigma in general. Operating in the cannabis space has been challenging. I'm in my fourth year of operating cannabis nursing solutions, and I'm in a place where everything is good. Like, things is good. I'm overwhelmed in a good way. And so I would like to just make sure that people really understood my perspective just about how to approach stigma. Confidence is another piece of what isn't needed to operate in this space in a different kind of way. Like, I'm hyper acutely aware of um, how I develop and cultivate my confidence in any situation. And, I just sent out an email on my mailing list. I was talking about one of the ways that I've been able to facilitate that process. One of the ways I've been able to facilitate that process is through taking improv. And improv has significantly helped because at the end of the day, we would spend our time trying to get a laugh just